Dear friends and NET aspirants, welcome back to the lecture series of cultural studies in our YouTube channel. Today in this lecture, we will learn about fundamentalism. Fundamentalism, I have seen this term in many syllabus of MA syllabus of cultural studies, and this is very easy to understand as well. This is going to be a very short video, and if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, subscribe to it if you are interested and press the bell icon while you subscribe. At the same time, also follow me on Instagram if you are also there on Instagram. And if you are looking for some serious, well arranged, affordable, simplified study materials, you can visit my website and have the free trial and see the entire audio lectures and the for downloadable PDF materials and previous and practice question papers that we are providing in our website for our students. If you're interested to have all of them, you can join our family as a student from the website itself. And if you are interested to know more about the courses and the materials and free bonuses of a personalized study guideline and weekly test in every Saturday, that happening in every Saturday, providing for our students in every Saturdays, you can WhatsApp me or call me in this number, or you can use this Instagram ID to reach out to me and chat with me. Okay, so do visit my website www.highpoint.in. the link is there in the description box. You can click it and go to the website directly. From the website itself, you can message me in this WhatsApp number. Okay, about fundamentalism is very easy to understand. This is quite familiar. We are quite familiar of this notion. Let's have introduction. The term is used to refer an chauvinistic rejection of an alternative form of thinking. See, we have an accepted form of thinking. We have an accepted way of life. We have accepted form of performances. We have accepted form of, notions around us. For everything and anything, we have accepted form. So, for a person to live together, for two or more person to live together, marriage is the accepted form. Or nowadays, living together is an accepted form. We reject all other alternative thinking. We reject all other alternative notions, all other alternative ways in which two people can live together. We have a notion, accepted notion of how a family should work, where women should work in kitchen, or even though that person, woman is or mother is as an educated person, is having a job outside the home, even then she is expected to work inside the kitchen and do all the chores possibly that is there in a home. Okay, so that is the accepted way of thinking. An alternative way of thinking, like man is working in the kitchen and women going out for work, men are taking care of the chores of house, that is not quite possible for every other person. So we are rejecting that alternative kind of thinking. So fundamentalism is basically like that. Fundamentally, what is there now as accepted way of thinking, accepted way of life, accepted ideas, that is accepted. All other alternatives form of thinking, they got rejected. That is fundamentalism basically. Okay, in cultural studies, how it affects everyday life. So in cultural studies, how fundamentalism is important, because it will affect our everyday life and modes of meaning generation. See, we have a notion, we have an accepted thinking, we have an accepted concept about women, we have an accepted concept about women, we have accepted concept about men, we have accepted concepts about education, we have accepted concepts about mother, we have accepted concept about a job, we have accepted concepts about anything and everything around us. Okay, so this will affect when some changes are happening in that sphere, when we accept or reject alternative form of thinking in these things, that will affect our everyday life and our modes and ways, and the way in which we are meaning are created, the generation of meaning will be affected by this fundamentalism. And fundamentalism is an important context and location in cultural studies. Fundamentalism is a movement that responds to modernization by seeking a social obedience to the scriptures or tradition. Okay, so usually in India and all, most of us are religious persons, and we so adamant about our scriptures, religious scriptures, holy scriptures, whatever we call them. So fundamentalism is a movement that responds to modernization by seeking a social obedience to the scriptures or tradition. A person who is adamant to the tradition, who is totally believing, who is so firm in his or her obedience to the scriptures and religious notions, they are quite against modernity. Any change or any alteration for the any alteration in the accepted form of thinking, they will go against such a change. So fundamentalism is a movement that went against modernization, went against changing something, went against all the alternative kind of thinking, all other renovations that will happen in an accepted form of thinking. So fundamentalist is basically against all these things. And how this movement will work? By seeking a social obedience. So the person who are fundamentalists or involved in fundamentalism as a movement, they will be at most obedient to the scriptures, the religious rules and tradition. In that way, they will negatively or they will go against modernization or any other alternate kind of thinking about any other notions that we find around us. Fundamentalism can thus be defined as a defense of a way of life that was being rapidly superseded and as being rooted in revivalism and pietism. So it's a kind of defense. When something alternate is coming, emerging, we will talk about the scriptures, the rules laid by the religious groups, religious, priest and all. We will say about that. We will think about reviving the cultural things that no more accepted. So in that way, fundamentalism can go against the alternative form of thinking. The changes are happening inside a society. Fundamentalisms claim that some sources of ideas and text are beyond error. So the religious text, the scriptures, the holy text, and some traditions and culture, these ideas, they are beyond error. No error can happen to that. It's absolute and they are complete, and they believe that these sources provide a perfect guide to living and society. Okay, so if you are a religious person, you will relate everything to the religious scripture that you are reading, that you are studying. You will find that the way you should shape your life according to the rules that you find that in that script, the religious in which you are believing. But actually, why this belief is so important for fundamentalists? Because they know that there is an alternative way of thinking already and always existing. So in order to prevent that alternative form of thinking, in order to prevent that different way of life, they believe that these sources provide a perfect, unquestionable, beyond error and complete guide to living and society. But there are a lot of errors, and it is not universal and it is not beyond error as well. Steve Bruce points out that such beliefs about the authenticity of the text are basically matters of hermeneutics and arise with the print culture in the West. So how we happen to believe about the authenticity of the text, how we believed that this text is authentic, it is basically written by a person only, right? However, we believe that it is written, invoked by a Holy Spirit and all, but still it is written by a human being only. How we got this printed, form of this work? When print culture emerged, right? Especially in West, when print culture emerged, then this belief also emerged. Before that, there is, even though people believed many other superstitions and all, but we cannot fully authentically believe that this work is so authentic and it is beyond error. Fundamentalism advocates a return to true religion in order to reclaim that golden age. So we all must have heard this. Even many of us also believe that the old ages were so good. But let me tell you, when you consider the ancient times of India, there existed casteism, there existed oppression, there existed so many other diverse ways of oppression for women. Now we are slowly emerging as liberated souls. And when we are thinking about individuality, we think about individual identities, individual preferences and life and all. But fundamentalism says that true religion was somewhere in the past, where there had a golden age. We need to reclaim that. Fundamentalisms are also radical revisions of the past provoked by changes in the community. Okay, so fundamentalism also happened when some changes happened in community that they are not recognizing. Change is actually something that we cannot change. Change is inevitable. Nobody can stop that. So when revisions happened in past and changes happened in community, then only fundamentalism also happened. But fundamentalists believe that these religious things, these cultural things that we have now, or that we assume that once we had, they were absolute, they were beyond error, they were complete, and they had complete guide to how a person should live and how a society should function. We have to go back to that. Such changes are perceived as threats to the continuity of the past and the very tradition itself. When some changes are happening, when something emerges, see, when you can look up to your parents, okay? Parents will think in a way, and their daughters and sons will think in a different way, because their daughters and sons are living in a different life, different times. They are born into a different time, not the same as their parents, okay? So they won't accept the changes in attitude and changes in life that their daughters and sons are having. So fundamentalism perceive that these changes, or understand that these changes and these alternative way of life and meanings, all these are threats to the continuity of that golden past, and they are threats to the culture, the very absolute cultural entity that we all believe that we have, and the very tradition itself. All these changes are perceived to be as a threat that need to be prevented. Modernization has been seen as a major cause of fundamentalism in the Western world. So because of fundamentalism happening, so up until modernism, everything was going in a uniform way. People were they were not having too much difference of opinions. They were thinking, not using their brains for the first time in the history. You can see how modernism emerged, when people began to think for themselves. Until modernism, you can see religious scripts were thinking for them, okay, about freedom, about life, about education, about marriage, about love, about freedom. For everything and anything, religious scripts, holy scripts were thinking about them, thinking for them. But when people began to use their brain more intensely, people were thinking about themselves, their life, their perception, their freedom individually, then modernization happened. So modernization in a way seen as the major cause of fundamentalism. So fundamentalism also emerged with the modernization or modernism, because when this modernism emerged, these traditionalists, they believed that this alternative way of thinking, it's a threat to the very good tradition that we have. Okay, so fundamentalists prevented or wanted to prevent, or they wanted to suppress modernism in Western world. Fundamentalism is not the ideology of the marginalized. Fundamentalism is not the ideology of the marginalized. When marginalized people began to speak, when women began to speak, when Dalit Bahujans began to speak, when Afro-Americans began to speak, when when all these people, oppressed, marginalized, suppressed, subjugated people began to speak, then new social movement happened. When modernization happened, then changes occurred, then alternative way of life happened. So fundamentalism basically done by this elite class of people who wanted this tradition to continue, so that they can rule others, so that they can have all the source of production and the means of production, and have basically wealthy lifestyle. Okay, so fundamentalism is not a movement, or fundamentalism is not an ideology of the marginalized people, but it's a movement, or fundamentalism as an ideology is a ideology of the elite people or upper class or caste people, so that they wanted to have this golden age. They term this as a golden age. They wanted this tradition to continue. Now also we can see this trend so relevant in India or anywhere in this world. Now 20th century fundamentalisms, with their origins in various reactionary movements can therefore be described as follows. We can describe the 20th century fundamentalisms in these four ways. Espouses beliefs in the authenticity, infallibility, and final authority of the scriptures. So they more and more, again and again, they will emphasize the authenticity, infallibility. They are beyond the error, final authority of the scripts. So the error-free nature and the authenticity and the authority of the holy scriptures, they will espouse and they will emphasize again and again in 20th century fundamentalism. It's often a reaction to perceived threat or crisis. When some changes are happening, when some new way of life are tending to begin, or then some changes will occur, then it will emerge as a reaction when fundamentalists, they perceive that these changes are threat or a crisis. Shows a strong intolerance to dissent, implying monopoly over truth. They cannot understand, fundamentalism cannot understand that truth is different. Truth has different faces. It is not acceptable. Truth is mono truth. I mean, there is only an absolute truth for fundamentalism. There is no way that truth can have multiple faces. Multiplicity of truth is intolerant. Truth is not the same for everything. So maybe you have something in front of you. You may have a pen, you may have a glass, you may have your phone. Maybe you are seeing the screen of the phone, and the other person sitting opposite to seeing the back of the phone, right? So what will happen if that opposite person thinks that, see, what I am seeing in the other person's hand, that I am seeing the back of the phone, and I perceive that that is the phone. The phone has only that side. The phone has no other side. So if you wanted to understand a mobile phone, you need to have the idea, have the belief, have the understanding that it has two sides or four sides or multiple sides. Okay, and switches are there in either of the sides, and many functions are going on in the back of the phone and the front of the phone. Then only you can have an understanding about the phone, right? The same way, truth is also like this. There are different perceptions about truth. It is not the same. And that is not tolerable for fundamentalists. It embodies a cultural critique, implying that all is not well with society. So it will also have this fundamentalism will have a cultural critique, in which that they will apply whatever changes are happening culturally and socially, politically inside a society. It is not the right thing. It will imply in that cultural critique that everything is not happening in this society is correct. Nowhere on earth it is correct always, right? But that is so natural to culture. It is not right or wrong. The way in which we are living, that is not right or wrong. So that is fundamentalism. Appeals to, so the 5th and 6th, 7th points are here. Fundamentalism appeals to tradition in a selective manner that establishes a meaningful relationship between the past and the present, and inventing tradition in the process. So in 20th century, tradition get a more upper hand, in which we believe that tradition is the thing that will connect the present and the past. Tradition and rituals are the thing that will connect the parents and their children, right? They have born into this world in different time and space, and they have different facilities, different things. But still tradition, the parents will pass this tradition to their children. Why? In order to have a connection, in order to have a meaningful relationship between the past and the present. And here in 20th century, fundamentalists believe that tradition is in process too. Tradition never go its relevancy, but it will get processed. Fundamentalism seeks capture of political power and remodeling the state for the achievement of stated objectives. Okay, so fundamentalism, it will capture the political power in the name of culture, in the name of religion, in the name of caste. It will capture political power and it will intend to remodel the state for the achievement of state objectives. So the fundamentalists, they will mark state objectives as go back to this golden age, reviving of the culture, reviving of the tradition, the lost beliefs, reviving the lost interest in scriptures and all. Now we can see our central government is doing many things, fundamentalist things like this. So achievements of state objectives, so they believe that these things are the revival of these things are also objectives, state objectives too. And it is also marked by charismatic leadership. Fundamentalism, it is not done by marginalized people. It's not a movement carried out by marginalized oppressed people, but elite people. So there you can find charismatic, attractive, central leadership too. So these are the characteristics of 20th century fundamentalism. Now that's all about fundamentalism. I hope this was clear to you. If you look around, fundamentalism is quite near your life, and that can reshape and shape your way of life. That's how it is important in cultural studies as well. Do not forget to visit my website and follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And while you subscribe, press the bell icon too. And if you want to know more anything related to the website, courses that we are sharing in there, and the bonuses and offers, you can you can use this number, WhatsApp me, or you can use Instagram page to reach out to me. Okay, meet you in the next video session. Until then, stay tuned to Hypoen and be happy, guys. Tata, bye bye, thank you.